He who explains his power has already lost it. To be desired is to be a question that has no easy answer. The moment you become a solution, you cease to be a mystery. The silent architect. Women communicate desire through a language made entirely of silence, a frequency that conveys far more than any combination of words ever could. And it is fundamental that you understand right at the beginning of this journey that what they viscerally desire most is exactly what they will never ask you for directly. There is an abyss, a dead zone, where most modern relationships suffocate and perish. And this place is defined by the things she will never vocalize, because the desires she keeps under lock and key are the ones she most yearns to have discovered. The men who understand this paradox do not just improve their relationships, they control the very reality of the interaction. To understand the gravity of this, we need to go back in time, specifically to the year 1957, when renowned psychologist Leon Festinger published his revolutionary research on cognitive dissonance, shedding light on the excruciating gap that exists between what people say they want logically and what they actually desire emotionally. You need to internalize that a woman can look into your eyes and say one thing with her socially polished words, while her nervous system, the oldest and most reptilian part of her biology, is screaming something completely different, begging for an opposite reality. This is not about tricks. It is not about cheap manipulation by pickup artists. It is about understanding the complex architecture of female desire, a structure that most men spend their entire lives ignoring, playing a simple game of checkers, while women operate in dimensions of emotional strategy that they never even learned to see. The fatal error, the crime that condemns most men to romantic mediocrity, is that they obediently listen to what she says, process the literal information, and completely ignore what she does, what she feels, and what her body is transmitting. And then, inevitably, they find themselves perplexed, sitting in the rubble of a relationship, wondering why the passion mysteriously died 6 months later. Why she, who used to be warm and receptive, now seems distant, like a stranger living in the same house. They torture themselves trying to understand why the chemistry that once seemed electric, capable of burning the oxygen in the room, now feels as bureaucratic and sterile as a corporate job interview. Here is what they do not teach in school, and what modern society tries to hide from you. Female desire does not operate based on Cartesian logic. It is not a mathematical equation where kindness plus availability results in sex. It operates based on something much older, something infinitely deeper, a force that predates the invention of language and the norms of polite civilization. Consider the world in which women grew up and were molded. Since childhood, they have inhabited a reality that systematically punished them for wanting too much, for expressing ravenous hungers, for asking too directly for what satisfies their instincts, for appearing excessively anxious or sexual. As a result of this evolutionary and social pressure, they learned to speak in code, developed the ability to communicate through subtle behavior, through the modulation of tension in the environment, through the empty spaces of what they deliberately do not say. And if you, as a man, cannot read this encrypted language, you are living in a poorly made translation of reality, always operating one step behind what is really happening. This matters, and it matters more than your career or your hobbies, because your ability to decode these invisible signals determines the entire trajectory of your intimate life. Understand that it is not your money that keeps her. It is not your gym looks. It is not your ability to perform some memorized routine. It is your almost psychic ability to see what she needs before she has the humiliation of having to reduce that vast and complex desire to small, limited words. This perception is the fundamental difference between being the man actively chosen and being the man with whom she settled for lack of a better option. Dr. Wednesday Martin, a behavioral psychologist and social researcher, spent years dissecting female sexuality, and her research revealed something that most nice guys never consider in their worst nightmares. A woman's desire intensifies in the presence of strategic uncertainty, not in destructive chaos, but in calculated uncertainty. The same neurological pathways, the same electrical circuits in the brain that fire during the initial and addictive stages of attraction, the flood of dopamine, the discharge of norepinephrine, the anticipation that makes the heart beat in the throat. They simply do not activate with comfort. Comfort is the antidepressant of desire. It soothes, but it also numbs. These passion circuits activate from controlled unpredictability, from a man who instinctively knows when to lead and advance, and when to pull the brake and retreat, creating a space where she needs to lean in to reach him. Brain imaging studies by anthropologist Helen Fisher showed something similar and biologically fascinating. When women are deeply attracted to a man, their brains do not just light up in the regions of affection and comfort. They catch fire in regions associated with craving, with insatiable desire. We are talking about the same primitive areas that activate in substance addiction, in the pursuit of prey, in the hunt for survival. This is not a flaw in female psychology. It is not a system error. It is a feature, an evolutionary functionality that modern dating has tried to sanitize, tried to make safe and palatable, pretending that this predatory and intense nature does not exist. But biology, in its brutal wisdom, does not care about social performance or what is considered correct these days. It cares only about what works for the selection of the strongest genes. And what works in practice is almost always the diametrical opposite of what you were taught to do by movies, magazines, and popular advice. Therefore, let us descend now into the depths of human psychology. Let us enter the territory of behaviors that women ardently desire, but would prefer to die rather than articulate out loud. They do not hide this because they are cruel manipulators, but because the simple act of articulating these desires would destroy the power and magic they carry. Some truths evaporate the moment they are spoken. We are about to dissect 6 specific behaviors, 6 triggers that activate something primal and uncontrollable in the female nervous system. 6 things she fantasizes that you do, but that she will never, under any circumstances, ask for directly. Pay attention to every detail, because once you see the matrix of this behavior, you can no longer unsee reality. The first hidden desire, the foundation of everything, is that she wants you to make her feel slightly out of control. Note the surgical precision of this phrase. Not insecure, not in danger, but out of control. There is a monumental difference between fear and excitement, and most men confuse dominance with stupid aggression. They think that taking command means being loud, forceful, physically imposing, or verbally aggressive. But real dominance, the kind that causes goosebumps, is silent. It resides in the way you move through space, in the firm but gentle way you touch her wrist when you guide her through a crowded room, communicating without words, "I have you, follow me." It is in the way you decide the destination of the evening without asking her opinion every 5 minutes, and in the way she feels a physical relief, a relaxation in her shoulders for not having to manage the logistics of the date. You need to understand the cognitive load of the modern woman. Women spend the entire day in absolute control, making executive decisions, managing teams, navigating complex social dynamics, taking care of details. When the end of the day arrives and she is with you, the last thing she wants is another committee meeting disguised as a romantic relationship. She wants to feel desperately that she can let go of the reins, that she can turn off the part of the brain responsible for constant vigilance. Because you have this, because you are competent enough so that she does not need to be the responsible adult for the next hour. Psychologist Marta Miana's research on female desire brought to light an uncomfortable truth for many. Women are more sexually aroused when they feel desired, not when they feel in control of the situation. They reach the peak of arousal when they are the object of a pursuit so intense, so focused, that it overrides their own carefully managed and controlled self-image. But here is the master key that locks this secret. she cannot ask for it. The moment she has to turn to you and instruct you to be more dominant or to take the decision, you have already failed. You are not taking control. You are obeying an order from her, becoming just another employee in her life. And that instantly kills the entire dynamic of sexual polarity. She wants you to read the room, to feel the electricity in the air, to notice when she is testing your structure and your limit. She wants you to hold your ground when she pushes back, not because you are fighting with her, but because you have an internal conviction, because you know something she does not know in that moment. You know that by leading, she will thank you later. Not with words, words are unnecessary, but with the way she looks at you, with that glow of admiration and submission when no one else is watching. The second point is a silent killer of libidos. She wants you to stop asking for permission to exist and to act. This behavior destroys more relationships and dries up more desire than almost any other male flaw. The constant negotiation, the endless checking, questions like, "Is this okay? Do you want me to do this? Can I hold your hand? Should I kiss you now?" Every one of these questions is a bucket of cold water that weakens the tension you fought to build. It transforms desire, which should be fluid and artistic, into a bureaucratic and boring transaction. Women do not want a man who treats intimacy with the caution of a lawyer reviewing a legal contract. They want a man who possesses enough social and sensory intelligence to read the situation and move with confidence. Note that we are not talking about recklessness or disrespect, but about calibrated confidence. There is a fascinating study by psychologist Terry Conley on consensual non-consent fantasies. The data showed that a significant and surprising percentage of women regularly fantasize about scenarios where they are not the decision makers, where the choice is taken from them. This does not happen because they want to suffer real harm, but because the fantasy of being desired so intensely that the man takes total leadership is intoxicating to the female mind. This removes the crushing burden of choice. It removes the ancestral fear of being judged as easy or of wanting too much. If you take responsibility, she is free to just feel. Now let us be absolutely clear and responsible here. Consent is non-negotiable, but real and passionate consent does not mean asking for stammering verbal approval at every micro-step of the physical escalation. It means building a relationship and an attunement where she implicitly trusts you to read her signals before she even processes them. An environment where a dilated gaze, a breath that catches in the throat, a subtle change in the rigidity or relaxation of her body tells you everything you need to know. This requires real presence. It requires you to get out of your head and into the moment. It requires attunement, not a verbal checklist. When you stop asking for permission like a scared boy and start acting with calibrated boldness like a man, something fundamental changes in the atmosphere. She stops feeling like your teacher or your mother. She starts feeling like your woman. And that distinction is everything. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, when was the last time you led an interaction from start to finish without looking back, seeking her approval, seeking that emotional thumbs up? If you have to stop to think about the answer, you already have your diagnosis of the problem. The third secret desire is perhaps the most difficult for the modern man, conditioned to be pleasant, to accept. She wants you to push back when she tests you. Women test men constantly, not because they are mean or malicious, but because their biology demands to know if you are solid. They need to know if you will maintain your structure, your frame, when she applies emotional pressure, or if you will crumble like a house of cards the moment she challenges you. Most men fail this test in the first few seconds. She says something sharp or critical. He apologizes immediately. She withdraws and gets cold. He chases desperately. She creates distance. He collapses into needy, reassurance-seeking behavior. And in that exact moment, she loses respect. Maybe she does not consciously realize it at the time, but deeply, in the part of the brain that assesses survival and protection, she marks you as untrustworthy. She is evaluating if you are someone she can lean on when the real world gets tough, when real crisis knocks at the door. John Gottman's research on relationship stability found that couples who engage in healthy conflict, where both partners maintain their position and identity, have significantly higher satisfaction rates than those who avoid conflict at all costs. It is not the absence of conflict that predicts romantic success. It is the ability to maintain your identity and your calm during the chaos of conflict. When she tests you, understand this. She is not trying to win the argument. She is trying to see if you will disappear. She is trying to see if you are weak. If you will abandon your own values and your own dignity just to keep her comfortable and avoid a fight. And if you do that, if you fold, she will never feel safe with you. The subconscious reasoning is ruthless. If he cannot hold his position with me, a woman he loves, how will he hold his position against the world, against other men, against danger? So when she pushes, what do? You stay calm. You do not react emotionally. You do not get defensive. You certainly do not crumble apologizing for what you did not do. You acknowledge her, you hear her, but you remain present and do not move from your truth. This immobility, this quality of being a mountain before the storm, is what she is secretly craving. Not because she wants to fight forever, but because she wants the relief of knowing that you are unshakable. The fourth behavior she desires but will never say is that you keep the mystery. The absolute death of desire is complete and total transparency. When she knows everything about you, when you have vomited every insecurity, every fear, every childhood trauma in the first 3 months of dating, when there is nothing left to discover, when you become a book read and reread, desire dies. Desire requires space. It requires the unknown. It requires a gap for the imagination to work. Renowned psychotherapist Esther Perel speaks about this extensively in her work on eroticism and long-term relationships. She uses a powerful metaphor. Fire needs air. If you smother the fire with too much closeness, it goes out. Intimacy, affection, closeness, and desire, fire, attraction, are not the same thing. Often, they are opposing forces. The couples who keep the erotic connection alive through the decades are those who preserve a degree of separation, of mystery, of individuality. Most men kill attraction by becoming completely available, by becoming an open book, sharing every mundane thought in a desperate attempt to create closeness. But closeness without tension is just friendship. And, being brutally honest, women do not feel carnal desire to sleep with their asexual best friends. This does not mean you should become a cold, distant, or toxic man. It means you must keep your own internal world rich and private. It means you have thoughts to which she does not have immediate and unrestricted access. You have pursuits, hobbies, and passions that exist outside of her. You have a life that does not revolve around making her happy every second of every day. When she asks, "What are you thinking?" and you answer, "Nothing," or "Just smile," sometimes that is the most powerful answer. Not because you are hiding a dark secret, but because not everything needs to be shared. Some parts of your soul are yours and yours alone. And this privacy, this slight, calculated distance, keeps her curious. It keeps her brain working, imagining, projecting. It keeps her invested in discovering who you are today. The moment you become 100% predictable is the moment she starts looking at you like she looks at old furniture. Comfortable, reliable, useful, but deeply boring. The fifth desire is the one that sounds most paradoxical, but it is the most powerful of all. She wants you to prioritize your mission above her. This is the point where most modern men raised in the era of the sensitive man, get it terribly wrong. Women will say verbally that they want to be the center of your world, that they want your total attention, your time, your absolute focus. But what their biology responds to, what makes their knees shake, is a man who has something more important than them. A mission, a purpose, a direction in life. Extensive research by evolutionary psychologist David Buss on mate selection across diverse cultures consistently shows that women are attracted to men with high status and ambition. This does not happen because all women are gold diggers, but because ambition signals genetic fitness and survival capacity. It signals that you are capable of navigating the world, of building resources, of leading tribes, of altering the reality around you. When you drop everything, your work, your friends, your projects, just because she called, you think you are being romantic. But in truth, you are signaling the opposite of value. You are signaling that she is your entire world, that you have nothing bigger going on, and that is suffocating and scary for her. She does not want to be your world. That is too heavy a responsibility. She wants to be invited to be part of an incredible world that you are already building, with or without her. That is why men who are too available, too eager to cancel plans, too responsive to every text message, lose attraction quickly. They made her the center of gravity of their existence, and, by doing so, became small satellites orbiting around her. Women are attracted to expansion, to growth, to a man who is moving like a bullet train toward a goal. When you prioritize your mission, when you have the courage to tell her, "I can't see you tonight. I have important work to do," something magical and counterintuitive happens. She does not resent you, although she might pout in the moment. She respects you deeply. She starts competing for your valuable time instead of just expecting it as an acquired right. And that subtle shift in the dynamic changes everything, because now she is chasing. Now she is investing energy to be with you. Now she is wondering if she is good enough to keep a man so focused. This is not Machiavellian manipulation. This is just biology responding to the perception of real value. Finally, we arrive at the sixth behavior, a tactical detail that separates the boys from the men. She wants you to end the interaction first. This is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it is devastatingly effective, or destructive, depending on how you use it. Most men make the mistake of lingering, of taking too long. They stay past the high point. They stretch the phone conversation, the coffee date, the moment in the car, trying desperately to extract every possible drop of connection and validation. And by doing so, they kill the sexual tension and curiosity. Women are instinctively attracted to men who have other places to be, who have a full and vibrant life, who can enjoy the moment intensely and then leave while the energy is still high. There is a fundamental principle in behavioral psychology called the peak end rule. This principle dictates that people remember experiences based predominantly on 2 points: the moment of greatest intensity, the peak, and how the experience ended. The total duration of the experience is almost irrelevant to emotional memory. Therefore, if you stay too long, if you let the conversation die and get awkward, if you let the energy dissipate into uncomfortable silences, if you are the one who is clearly trying to extend the time because you do not want to leave, she will remember that. The last impression that will be etched in her brain will be the smell of desperation, the neediness, the clingy feeling that you had nothing better to do. But imagine the opposite scenario. If you are the one who ends first, if you are the one who looks at the watch and says, "I loved seeing you, but I have to run while things are still good," you create a vacuum. She is left wanting more. She is left on the crest of the wave. She leaves the date thinking about you, replaying the conversation, imagining what you are going to do next. She is left wondering when she will have the chance to see you again. It is in this empty space, in this absence, that attraction grows and multiplies. Attraction does not grow in saturation. It grows in lack. The famous anthropologist Margaret Mead observed that in practically all the cultures she studied, the person who controlled the terms of the separation held the social power of the relationship. Not the person who clung, but the person who had the strength to walk away first. This applies to everything in your life with her. Text conversations. Do not always be the last to respond. Dates, arguments, even physical intimacy. Be the first to pull back subtly. Do not do this like a childish game of hard to get, but do it because you genuinely have a life that calls you forward, a life that is bigger than that specific moment. She will feel that energy and chase you every time. Here is the final truth, the secret they will never admit, not even under torture. Women do not want you to ask them what they want. They want you to already know. They want you to have the empathy, the experience, and the intuition to know. Not because they are playing guessing games, but because the man who has to ask is, by definition, the man who does not understand her nature. And deep understanding is the entire foundation of desire. You cannot negotiate attraction logically. You cannot make a list of pros and cons to convince someone to desire you. You cannot talk your way into passion rationally. You can only embody, be, and live the behaviors that trigger her nervous system to respond involuntarily. The tragedy is that most modern men are so terrified of making a mistake, of being canceled, of offending, that they make the biggest mistake of all. They play it overly safe. They sanitize themselves. They psychologically castrate themselves. They become a beige and harmless version of a man that no one could rationally object to, but that no woman viscerally desires. Because desire, my friends, does not come from comfort and safety. It comes from tension. It comes from polarity. It comes from friction. It comes from a man who is willing to lead and take risks, even when the outcome is uncertain. Everything on this list requires you to take risks. It requires you to stop performing the role of the nice guy and start being an authentic man. It requires you to stop seeking her approval like a puppy and start creating the reality you want to live. The men who really understand this do not ask for permission to be who they are. They do not wait for external confirmation. They move through the world with a silent and unshakable certainty that women can feel vibrating from across the room. It is not loud arrogance. It is quiet certainty. And that certainty is the most magnetic substance in the universe. Because in a world full of lost, confused men afraid of their own shadow, the one who is not afraid becomes instantly rare. He becomes instantly valuable. He becomes instantly unforgettable. She will never tell you any of this. She cannot. The moment she has to explain the rules of the game to you, the magic dies and the game is over. But now you have the map. Now you know what is behind the veil. What you decide to do with this dangerous knowledge depends entirely on you. You can ignore all this, rationalize, say that it's not really like that, and go back to your comfort zone. Or you can accept that desire operates on radio frequencies that most men never learned to tune into. And you can start today, right now, to turn the dial and hear the real music. The choice, as always, has been yours.